There you go. All right. Well, let's get into this. So this is a very special episode. If you're watching this, thank you guys for who's ever watching. But we have in person today, Stan Watts. Now, that's not your full name, right?
No, sir.
All right. Let's hear it. The full name, William Stanton Watts. Why do you go by Stan? We'll start with that.
That's just what I was called growing up, was Stano.
All right. Stano. I like it.
When I got my master's degree, I was going to go by William. That didn't go. Nobody called me William.
You wouldn't go by Billy? No Billy?
No Billy.
No Billy. Okay. That's a little insight into Stan, but we'll go Stan for this. And I want to kick it off with a interesting icebreaker question that I found. All right, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
If you were stuck at an amusement park for 30 days, where would you want it to be and why?
Disneyland, no questions.
Easy enough. Why?
Because they have those huge turkey legs you can eat.
Okay, yeah.
And you can just get one of those and you're good all day long.
See, that's the way to do it. What I would do is I would go to Pirates of the Caribbean, and I'd probably just hang out with all the animatronics and pretend I was on the ride. So when people would like drive by, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's just part of the ride," but it was just really me. Maybe throw things at them. Who knows?
Did you hear, what's his name? He came and he took his spot right at the end there.
Jack Sparrow?
Yeah.
Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp was right there at the end.
Was he really?
He took his spot and he was like doing it. So at the end of the ride, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, it's really him."
And then on the side, Amber Heard's right there, like, you know, causing a ruckus.
What?
Anyways, this is a pretty exciting interview. Happy to have my buddy Stan here. We work together, and from what I've seen, and Stan actually started with us 6 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a very short time, but in that time frame, Stan has made it very clear that he's someone who constantly gets after it and is a hard worker, and that's why I want to talk to him, because that's the point of this entire podcast is no matter who you work with or who you are, you all have an interesting story. And we're going to get into that a little bit today with Stan. So let's start from the very beginning. Where'd you grow up? What were a few of your hobbies you did as a kid? Some of that. Let's explore it a little bit.
Yeah, I grew up in good old Davis County, Utah.
Okay.
Right there in Centerville, Utah. Say it's Utah.
In Davis County, what is there to do on the weekend growing up? Like, what's your favorite thing to do?
Average is usually playing football, baseball, whatever season it is, that's a sport you're playing.
Yeah.
Or you go up the mountains, hiking, or skiing, snowboarding with your family.
Yeah. So lots of outside stuff.
Yeah.
Right on.
So that was the hobbies. I mean, I was pretty lucky. I got to do a lot of RC stuff, RC planes.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there's tons of that stuff now with like all the drones and stuff. I don't know if you're into that, but that's huge. So going back to growing up and all that, so you made it very clear you like to play sports, be active and all that. One of the things that I found out about you, which if you're watching this, you might not ever know this about Stan, but he used to be a male cheerleader for for Utah State University, right? No joke. Those guys, they don't mess around. Stan was telling me some of the stuff. He's like, yeah, I have nerve damage in my arm because I would lift people up just regularly. I was like, okay, well, this guy's lifting people up. Can have some nerve damage. But tell me about being a male cheerleader. Like, in today's society, I know like sometimes I might be looked on as kind of like, oh, that guy's a male cheerleader. Like, what's the most common misconception someone had when they heard that you're a male cheerleader?
Oh yeah, well, it's not even male, female. People think it's a soft sport, and statistically, it's the most dangerous sport there is.
Why is that?
Just per capita of injury.
Falling and stuff like that?
Yeah, there were so many injuries. Like one I saw a couple in person that were just really bad. But one of the worst ones I saw is we threw a girl up in a basket toss, and that's where you have the three people and the one in the back that catches. We threw her up, and she was coming down, and she didn't bring her elbows in.
Ugh.
So her elbow hit my friend in the occipital bone right here, and it fractured it, and he just had a huge blood bruise right here. There's just a pocket of blood.
Jeez.
And it was pretty nasty.
Yeah, I know. I had lots of friends who were cheerleaders in high school, and that was the main thing. Is like they'd fall and break their tailbones all the time. And not into that. Like I'm the biggest wimp when it comes to tailbones. Like I'll just have it bumped and be like, okay, I'm out. Can't do it. So that's intense. But were you ever judged as like as a male cheerleader? Or did people, have something to say?
Oh, it's never said to my face, I'm sure.
You're too big to say it to your face. They'd be like scared of you. They'd be like, I'm not messing with that guy.
But I'm sure people were like, oh, I could do that. And then until they actually get a chance to do it, then like, oh, just kidding.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder than it looks.
One of my favorite stories, I think I told you this, but a University of Utah cheerleader, he was a man. There was like a BYU fan that jumped out on the field, and I don't think he was streaking. He was just running on the field. And the Utah guy just tackled him and put him in his place. And he's like, all right, yeah, don't mess with them. They don't mess around. So, all right. Well, that's a good little background on Stan. But I want to talk about the things that you're doing now. Like there's some things that I'm pretty interested in after doing like some research on you. The other day we had a conversation about like your auto-detail and that kind of thing. When did that start? How did it start? And yeah, let's go from there. When did you start detailing cars?
Yeah, so growing up, my dad, interesting story about my dad is he grew up with seizures.
Okay.
And so that was really hard for him. He grew up in a time where people didn't really know what seizures were or why you had them, where it was called epilepsy. Because that's what he had. So sometimes people thought he like had demons and stuff like that. And so when he was 35, he had surgery, brain surgery, which then took that away from him. But he wasn't able to drive until he didn't get a license until he was like, I think it was 20, in his 20s.
Oh, man.
And so he really just loved driving. He loved cars. And he always took really good care of his cars. So that was just something that I loved because I grew up with my dad loving it.
Yeah.
And so in 2018, it's either 17 or 18, I should know that better. My dad passed away from cancer. I just started taking care of my car very well. Just, I don't know, it was time alone, think about my dad, and I felt really close to him while I was doing it. And people started asking me, like, hey, I put my pictures up on Instagram, Facebook, and people would be like, man, that's really nice. Can you do that to my car? And pretty soon, so many people asked me, I was like, well, I can make money doing this.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking of a name, and my wife said, well, why don't you name it Jaybird after your dad?
Oh, that's awesome. So the name comes from your dad.
Yeah.
All right. That's really cool.
So, yeah, there's been several times where I've been, we could talk about that later, but I've been working on cars in the middle of the night because I've always had a job during the day, and then I'll do cars in the middle of the night when I can. And it'll be like 2 a.m. I'll just be working, and I can feel my dad just around, or I'll be thinking of him. It's a pretty cool experience.
Oh, that's way cool. And thank you for being like open and willing enough to share that. I know you're a dad, right? You have kids. Do you have similar experiences like that with your kids? Like, or do you try and bring them out when you are working on your car now and like try and be like, yeah, this is, what you do with your dad. You're working on the car, clean it up.
Oh yeah. Well, I usually, it can get, cleaning a car is really, you have to be meticulous.
Oh yeah.
They're paying really good money to have their car look fantastic. So a lot of the time I'll have them bring out their bikes or their scooters, and they'll clean their scooters, or I'll have them drive the car while
cute.
I'm doing it, and they'll clean their scooters and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, and that's super interesting you say that, because I have the same experience with my dad with yard work. Like, no one likes doing yard work, but it's like getting out there, you share experiences with him. And like, I always love getting out there and working with my dad, even though if it's in Arizona and it's like 120 outside, we still always have a good time. And like, their memories we'll always remember. So no, thank you for sharing that. That's pretty cool. Long term, what's the goal with Jaybird? Do you want to like full-fledged make it an auto detailing company, or like sell it off? Like, what's the long-term goal there?
Yeah. Well, after I created it, I realized that after I got my MBA, I thought, oh, I'm going to get a management position. They're going to pay me lots of money, so on and so forth. Definitely not how it works. And so I realized, I was like, well, I need to create something for my kids where they can have management experience and how to run a business way before they're my age.
Yeah.
So then they can have that. So when they do go apply, they can have that experience and get into those positions.
Yeah.
So that's the long run, is I want to give that to my kids so that they can learn how to run those kind of things, have that experience, and have the time to mess up, to learn and grow.
Yeah.
So then as they get that done, we then can also have a car wash, have a detail bay. That's the long-term goal.
Yeah.
I want to have a Jaybird Auto-Detail car wash.
That's awesome. And I think that's super important, especially like teaching kids at a young age how to work hard is crucial. I have the same idea of like, I want to teach my kids that kind of work and like what it takes to put in that kind of effort. But I want to get goats. I spent an entire summer milking goats for one of our family friends. Absolutely hated it, but it was in Arizona, so it was in the middle of summer, like I said. But it's like, you have no choice. You have to milk the goats, otherwise they're going to have some issues pop up and put some hair on your chest. That's for sure.
Have you ever baled hay or thrown it up on the trailer?
I've picked it up. I've never like actually baled hay, but my grandpa, he was an alfalfa farmer, so he's got tons of like experience doing that, but not an easy job.
No. So yeah, I was a boy in Davis County, and I always like, why do cowboys dress the way they do? And then there was one summer where I was asked to help.
Yeah.
Bale hay and throw it up on the trailer, and man, did I learn quick why you dress with a tight shirt and tight pants.
Yeah, I mean,
that's rough work, man. So going along with that, I want my kids to experience that as well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great way to do it. And another great way to teach hard work that I think you're pretty passionate about is powerlifting, right? Like, pick up those heavy weights, son. When'd you get into that? Like, let's talk a little bit about powerlifting. That's one of my not powerlifting specifically, but exercise, fitness, and all that stuff is one of my favorite things to talk about. So this might be the rest of the podcast. I'm sorry, everybody, if you're not into this, but we're gonna get into it. So let's talk about it. When did you start? Like, what sparked the interest there? Let's go into it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how far you want me to go back, but it was kind of my whole life. I played sports. I was a big kid growing up, so I was able to start youth football a year early.
Did you always scare the kids? Like, when you showed up to practice, they're like, "Who is this guy? He's not a freshman. He's a freshman in college."
Well, it was just like I would show up and I was starting.
Yeah.
And I never really had to try hard. I was a lineman, and I could move people, and so I did that my whole life. And then my senior year, I broke my wrist.
Oh.
And then that was the first year I didn't start. And so I became like a backup.
Yeah,
I was like the backup. Anyways, so when I became a cheerleader in college, that's when I first picked up power building. And that's the first time I ever really fell in love with lifting and sports, like really fun.
Mm.
And that's where power building became a thing for me, because I was like, wow, I really can push myself, see how much I can lift, see how much I can change my body, or all of that.
Yeah, it's an amazing sport, and it really does. It like tests your limits. And then, you know, when you go after a PR and you hit it, it's like one of the most accomplishing things in the world. You're like, I can go literally destroy anything that comes in my way.
Yeah, with anybody listening, you should talk to Brett before you lift, because Brett came and said hi to me at the gym, and then I hit my biggest PR 5 minutes after he talked to me. I don't know what it was, but
all right, I want to clarify this story here for a second. I saw Stan at the gym, and I was like, "Oh, Stan, like, what's up?" And I just went and said hi. And then the next week at work, he shows up and he's like, "Man, I don't know what you said, but I jumped on the bench after, what was it, like, you know, like 2 months after not lifting anything or something like that."
Yeah.
And he hits a PR on the bench. He benched 405. That's insane. That's my max deadlift. And like, he's very humble about it. But
it's because his testosterone just like came. I don't know what happened. It hit me, and
it's like rubber bounces off me straight to you. It's like, but it was really impressive. And like, not only that, but having that mindset of like, okay, I'm gonna go hit the bench and give it my all. Like, it's been 2 months, but I'm gonna give it my all. Like, that's the kind of mindset I love. No matter what it is, I'm gonna go put my full heart into it. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to like have you on here is because from what I can tell, that's everything that you do is like, if you're interested in it, you're going to give it your all. And I think that's such an important thing to do. And that's one of the reasons why I love powerlifting. And the last thing I want to touch on with powerlifting is like lessons learned. Are there any specific lessons that it's taught you? For me, weightlifting has taught me to be patient and committed, because like you said, you don't really see those results that you're trying to like achieve for months. Like, you'll hit plateaus, you'll see that, but you have to be consistent and remain, you know, active, and you have to see your goal and see it through to the end. So that's one of the lessons it's taught me. Curious to see if it's done something similar for you.
Oh yeah, for sure. So what it's done for me is consistency. I would always tell my wife, thinks it's funny, but I tell her 225 is always 225. And that's what I go by.
Yeah.
Is 225 pounds never changes. And if you're that way in life, it's like, I'm the same person. My wife always says that. Like, I don't change according to who I'm with. I try to be the same person around everybody, which can be annoying, I'm sure, around some people. But like, I'll just tell you straight how it is.
Yeah.
And that's gotten me in trouble. But that's who I am. And that's what the gym's really taught me as well. Is in the long run, I feel like that's the best way to be consistent, to be the same person always.
Yeah.
So people can count on it.
Yeah, I love that too. And two things that you said that really stood out is, one, be the person that people can count on. Like, I've mentioned this before. I want to be the person that's like, if my sister has a tire blowout, she knows that she can call me and I'll be there no matter what. But the other thing you said is just consistency. And if you're out there listening and there's something that you want to start doing, just find small steps that you can start and go from there, and then figure it out along the way. Obviously, you can tell with this podcast, just figuring out along the way. This is a very bad setup compared to most. Like, I probably shouldn't have these chairs in this video, but I don't care. I'm having fun doing what I'm doing. So that's what's important. But I appreciate you sharing that. Going on to another thing. So, powerlifting aside, do you have any other hobbies, talents, or something along those lines that you don't usually bring up when you're talking to people? I know you mentioned RC. Are you still doing stuff with the remote control stuff?
I'm going to pick it up again. I had a drone for a while, and then,
I mean, yeah, there's lots of brands out there that are there.
Yeah, but I'm going to pick it up again with my little boy, just because every time we bought him a Batman RC car, he loves it. But it bugs me because it only goes like 2 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So I want to buy one that goes like 30 miles an hour, and then, but I'll buy it for him.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, you got to throw that in there. It's not just for dad, or it's not for him. It's whatever. But
but no,
that's
like
fun.
my hobbies have to be my kids, because that's whatever they're into. That's what I'm into. It has to be, because you only have so much time in a day.
Better get your kids into powerlifting. Get them in there, start lifting. I don't know. Like you know, Brian Shaw is. We both love Brian Shaw. One of my favorite things that he posts is like him hanging out with his kids, and like he'll post a video of his son with like a dumbbell play set, like picking it up and doing cleans, and I'm like, that's gonna be my kid. Teach him at an early age. Well, cool. Something else. So this will probably be like the last main topic that we touch on today. And I think it's a really important one. We've talked a little bit about it previously on this podcast, but it's the aspect of like charity, right? And serving other people, trying to think of them first. But I wanted to ask you, why is this such a important part of your life? I know you mentioned it to me a little bit. You're like, yeah, I'll come on and talk about charity and love if you want. And in my mind, that's an important thing that I want other people to know too, that, that's something I'm passionate in. So I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, I want you to come on and give your insight into it. So with that all being said, tell me a little bit about why that resonates with you.
Yeah, it actually, as I was listening to your podcast, it made me, that's what hit me pretty strong, was charity. Is because you were talking about when you said, I want to help everybody around me.
Yeah.
And that's something that's, to me, what charity is it's like, hey, if I help everybody around me, that benefits me, as in I'm helping them.
Yeah.
Which helps them and it helps me.
Right.
And that's what this world's about.
100%.
Is, and that almost sounds selfish a little bit saying that. But that's 100% what it's about. And even if, like, I don't want to get super religious or anything, but in the Bible, one of my favorite stories is when Jesus is walking and he feels the guy touch his clothing.
Yeah.
And he feels virtue or power leave him. And it's called a charity. And he feels that leave him because he's full of charity and love, and it leaves him because the guy lacks it, and he heals him with it. And it talks about how charity is the greatest of all virtues.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I always strive to have. And I mean, you can never have as much as Christ, of course, right. It's perfect. But I want to have as much charity as possible, because life can be super hard.
Yeah.
So if you try to help the people around you, it always makes you feel better. And I've had really, really hard times in my life. Like just going through hard times, if you try to help the people around you, it helps your life be a whole lot easier.
I'm in full agreement on that. And I think it's important because you also just never know what people are going through. And if you're, trying to be a nice person and you're actively thinking about like what your actions are doing and how they're impacting other people, you can make someone who is having a hard day, you can make their day just a little bit easier. Yeah. Help them out a little bit. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. That's the thing too, is a lot of times I think we get this idea of service in our head and we have to think, oh, I have to go home and bake them cookies, or I got to go and mow that person's yard. Like, we always think of these outward things that we have to do that are kind of take a lot of time, but it doesn't take a lot of time just to say hi or to check up on someone, send a text to someone who might be in need. But I think that's really important. And that's, oddly enough, one of the messages I want to promote on this podcast is like, getting after it has a lot of different meanings behind it. But one of the other ones is like, what are you doing to help other people? Like, let's get after helping society help each other. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's an important message. And it's one that everyone can do. If you're in elementary school, you see someone at lunch who's alone, go sit by them. Or if you're at work and you hear someone's house flooded, maybe offer to buy them some dinner or go over and help if you can. Like, just figure out ways that you can be there for other people. And not trying to say this is like a selfish thing, but it'll all come back to you. Like, you'll be a happier person for it. You'll live a better life and you'll feel more fulfilled. That's the thing too, is when you forget about yourself and you think about other people, at least like from what I've seen, I always feel better. Like, pretty easy.
Oh yeah, and that's one thing. I mean, I've noticed to be around you, and you can just feel when you're around people that believe in that, is they have a presence and a power about them. Is that they help people and they want to help people. Is they demand that kind of presence because they're about good things. They want to help people out.
So, in your opinion, how do we help promote that message of you can always be there for someone? Like, what would you suggest we do?
Be consistent.
All right.
And we just look for opportunities to help people. And just like you said, it doesn't have to be anything big. It's one small thing a day.
Yeah.
Like when you're coming out of the store, maybe you see a mom with some children. Maybe it's extremely hard with one child. If she has two or three, maybe say, hey, can I open the door for you? Or can I help you with the cart? I can take it back for you.
Yeah.
Things like that.
And that's the thing. You never know. That could make that mom's day 100% better. She could be having a terrible day and you just have no idea, but you offer to open the door or help her with her groceries and it could change her outlook. Like, just look for small things like that. So yeah, hopefully we can change people's outward thinking in terms of like serving other people. Oftentimes, and I hate this, but I feel like people look at you and like you're trying to help, and they're like, "Oh, he has other, what is it like?
Intentions.
Yeah, he's got different intentions," or "Oh, that guy's weak because he's offering to help someone." It's like,
it's funny you say that because as I was saying it, I thought like, well, they might think you're kind of creepy for doing that, and that's totally what the world's try to make everybody feel is, oh, well, they want something from you. They're trying to help you. Why has the society turned that way?
Yeah.
What happened to holding a door for somebody? Or what happened to, let me get that cart for you. Or, you know what? Let me pay that for you.
Yeah.
Like, I believe that used to happen a lot more than it does these days.
Something cool that I think, or I was lucky enough to be a part of, is our company. We just finished our values week, and last Thursday, I believe it was our like service day. We were split into groups and everyone was given $100. And with that $100, we were asked to go out and make someone smile, put a smile on someone's face. And it was awesome to see because they would post it in our, we have a Slack channel where everyone would post photos and then like the stories that go behind the photos. And it was awesome to see, someone go to IHOP and tip the waiter $100 and then hear that waiter was saving up to go to a police academy in Salt Lake City. Or like another one was a group got together, went to an elementary school and took care of all the kids who couldn't afford lunch. Like, I think that's amazing. And it's just cool to see like all these different things and how many people's lives were improved for the better just off $100 and in just a quick thought. Like, in the grand scheme of things, $100 isn't that much, but it's enough to make someone happy for a day, So I don't know. I thought it was cool. I thought it was a cool activity for everyone to go do and all that.
Yeah. With my group, we got 4 $25 gift cards, which I think like $25 doesn't go that far in today's world, But there was a lady walk down, we gave her $25. And she was just like taking that. She was like, oh my, thank you so much. And I didn't think it would be that big a deal, but it was. And so it made me think a lot about like, well, I should do that just by myself sometime. So I haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
But I need to.
Oh, I need to be better too. And one of my favorite stories is actually my grandpa. My dad and my grandpa were actually going shopping in LA, and this guy came up to my grandpa. He was asking for some money. And at the time, my grandpa was like, no. And I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong, Dad, but I'm pretty sure this is how you told me the story. Anyways, my grandpa told the guy no. And my dad and my grandpa just go about their day like nothing's happening. They go shopping. And then while they're shopping, my grandpa looks at my dad and they have a conversation. And they end up going back to the guy, buying him lunch. And I think they give him a little bit of cash. But then my dad asked my grandpa, and he goes, like, why'd you end up going back? And my grandpa was like, well, initially I thought, the guy would probably spend the money on drugs, maybe booze, alcohol, whatever. But then, he thought, who am I to judge? The guy needs help. So they went back and my grandpa helped him out. And that's like one of my favorite stories is exactly that too, is we don't know everyone's situation, where like what got them to the point to where they're at, but we can be nice to anyone. And unless someone is like actively trying to beat you up and is being kind of a D-bag, then you don't have to be nice to them. But everyone else, you probably should be. So that's just, I don't know, something that came to my mind. But yeah.
That's awesome. That reminds me, just growing up, my dad would always say, he's like, if your family has enough, you should always be willing to help somebody else out. Because he would always say, karma's real. Like, you're going to do that, it'll come back. You should never worry about that. If your family is good, pass it along. Pay it forward.
Pay it forward. I love that. And I think that's great. And in my opinion, it's a good place to end up or wrap up this podcast. Because, again, like, if we get harp on one message, let's let it be that. Like, just be nice to someone. Be like, serve them if you can. But is there anything else you want to leave the listeners with? Like any other thoughts or a big message that Stan wants people to know? Something like that.
Just be consistent. Just be grateful for the little things, because in the long run that builds up, and you should always be thankful for what you have. And even when life's tough, you have things to be thankful for.
That's right. And I believe that 100% too. And I'm in full agreement. So I always like to leave the listeners with the weekly quote. Do you have it on you?
Yep.
All right.
This is one that my grandpa used to say, and it got passed down. And this is what it says. It's by Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but can make allowance for their doubting too. So that pretty much is saying, hey, when you can keep your head when those around you are losing theirs, you're the one that's going to end up on top.
Yeah, it's true. If you can keep your cool and hang in there, you'll be good. So, I love that. And thanks for sharing that. Thanks for being on the very first in-person guest of the podcast. When this podcast hits global scale and it's a production, this is going to be, you're going to remember this one. Very first in-person interview.
Hey, I have no doubts it'll get there.
Well, fingers crossed. But again, thanks for being on. It's been fun. We'll have to do it again. So,
all right. Thanks for the invite, man.
Right on.